Welcome to the Shots Pod, where we discuss all things Aldershot Town. Welcome to this latest episode. My name is Liam Flint. I'm joined by Howard Flint, and we're very pleased to say that our guest for today is former Shots player and current commercial manager at the club, Mark Butler. I should add as well that he's still the club's record goal scorer to this day. Mark, great to have you with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you for having me on the show. I listened to the first one. It's very good.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on. Dad, I believe you've actually seen Mark play many a time back in the day, haven't you?
Yeah, I've seen Mark with hair. I've seen Mark score goals. And I was just thinking back, the first time I did see Mark playing some friendlies, 1992, and I wrote the date down, August the 22nd, 1992. Do you remember that, Mark?
August the 22nd. What was special about the 22nd? I remember games, but was it the Simpson Air Cup or was it the first actual game?
No, it was Clapton, and it was Deodora League. So the Shots had dropped down 6 divisions in the pyramid, and it was our first game since the Reformation in terms of a proper league game. There were 1,493 fans, and I was one of them. And you may remember, Mark, that it was an interesting game, but it was 2-0 down after a few minutes, the good old Shots.
I do remember it. I remember it very clear. Obviously, it was a special day for the club. We'd played some friendlies. We'd been quite hastily assembled. We can talk a little bit more about the 92 team because the team was vastly superior to the league. The hardest part about that as a player was staying in the team. We were a bit like, I hate to use sort of cliches, but we were the Manchester United of the Deodora League, if you like, where everyone wanted to play for us, and that was the thing. There was teams that wanted to beat us because it was their cup final. And the hardest thing about being a player at that time was that every player wanted to play for us. So it wasn't necessarily just about winning every week. Over your shoulder, there'd always be another player that wants to join the football club the following week. They were the challenges. They were different challenges to today. But what a remarkable story, and it won't be repeated. It isn't something that I think we don't need to park it. We need to remember it with affection, and that was part of the journey to get us where we are now. But they can't take that away from us, and they won't be able to take that feeling of the first year away from anyone who was around at that time. We'd lost our football club, and therefore getting it back and having such a successful season was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to be there, Mark. I remember it so well. I was a young dad at the time, and sort of negotiated with my wife, could I go? It's a new club. And the thing I remember most, I remember 2 things really well. I remember 2-0 down after probably 20 minutes or so. Yeah. A chap behind me in the North Stand stood up after the second goal that Clapton scored, stood up, threw his season ticket in the air, just threw it, and said, same old Aldershot, because obviously there's a lot of pain about us going bust. And he walked out, or at least he headed out. And we all looked around and thought, wow, it was only 20 minutes. And then, of course, you raced away. You were put through and scored the first ever goal for Aldershot Town, as it is. And we won the game 4-2. I think Steve Stairs got 2 and you got 2.
Yeah, Stairsy got 2, and we'd actually turned it round just before half-time as well. So
that's right.
We were actually winning the game at half-time. And the second half, from what I remember, was quite a dull affair. And I think we got 1 extra, which kind of sealed the win. Yeah, I did hear that story about the season ticket holder. I did wonder whether it was a bit of urban myth, because obviously I never saw it playing. No, you've actually confirmed that it actually did happen.
Yeah, I was there, and it actually happened, and it so struck in my mind. Come on, guys. I remember Nick Fryer writing a letter to Shots fans, an open letter saying, come on, support your club. And I thought, wow, give the guys a chance. They've just been thrown together, but it's typical fans, isn't it? We're very negative at times, and I think there's so much positivity at the moment that we can talk about the future. But yeah, it's great, Mark. Great to see you.
Thank you. Yeah. Like I say, it's a pleasure being on the show, and it's like you say, that season was fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like I could let you two talk about the history of the Shots for the next 3 hours. But I mean, for the sake of time, Mark, just tell us, present day, your commercial manager, what's your role and relationship now with the club? What would we find you doing Monday to Friday nowadays?
Okay, so primarily you can dress it up as you wish. I'm very proud to be called the commercial manager, but ultimately it's a sales job where my aim is to raise around about £500,000 a year, give or take some figures. It'd be remiss to actually say the actual figures, but it's approximately £500,000 that the commercial department's got to raise. And there are about 30 to 40 items that you can use to get that kind of money. So, for example, the front of shirt is one item, the back of shirt is one item, the sleeve of the shirt, the stands get sponsored, the pitch boards, then you got the mesh banners, a match sponsorship, a ball sponsorship, player sponsorship. So it's very, very varied. And in some ways, it's quite nice because you can think of different things. Currently, I'm working on trying to get the dugouts sponsored. So if you see some new signage go around the dugout soon, you'll see that that's another form of income. When I stopped playing football, I went into sales. I was walking around London as a air filter salesman, and I was okay. I was enjoying it. It was a good career. And then Nicky Banger left. I think it was around about 2013, and I got asked if I would would I consider the job. Probably, I'll say it a bit tongue in cheek. Financially, it probably isn't the best move in comparison, but I was just looking at it saying, if I don't take this job, I'm going to be walking around London thinking I could have taken the job. So I went home, had a heart-to-heart with my partner, and we kind of went along the lines of, we think we can go back to air filters if this didn't work out. But fortunately, here I am 10 years later, and I love it. It has ups and downs. It's an emotional job, as in you carry around the result of the week that's just gone. And the highs are high and the lows are low. And if you can try and control those, you're all right. But it is very difficult. It is. And with this team this year, we have in the last month had some incredible highs and had a few lows as well. And it is a roller coaster ride. But you've got to try and control this. Don't get too high on the highs and don't get too low on the lows.
Yeah. But I imagine for a guy like you, it is the next best thing, right? Obviously, you can't play football forever. But for you to still be around the environment, close to the players, all the staff, you still feel part of the club, and for you, that must be a real privilege.
It is, and I am proud of the job I do now. I'm not involved with the first team in any way, shape, or form. There are some decisions that get made by the club that sometimes I'm asked an opinion on, but it's a pleasure to be involved with the club. One small thing which is a bit of a setback is that when you're a player, it was definitely easier because you play the game and that's your thing. You're just trying to win the match. Now, once you know a little bit about the politics of football clubs, and I'm sure you're already learning them now through the fact of money, like, Wrexham have money. Money normally means that you have more chance of being successful. You can mismanage, but if you've got it, you can have more chance of being successful. So now I'm on this, the business side of things. I know how important it is. And I think with a football fan, they're not too worried who spends it, are they? Like, if we get a oil sheik tomorrow that comes into Aldershot, I'm sure the three of us will be going, and, let's take us up the league as far as we can go and until the oil sheik's money runs out. But if you haven't got that, and I think we've got a good board here, but they're not necessarily money no object. So I think they support the club, they keep the club going, but it's not the situation where we're just throwing money at the football club. So therefore, we have a pecking order in our finances. And the bit where I was just trying to go to, sometimes it takes a bit of the romance out of football. When you're playing, it's just 11 versus 11 and you want to win. When you're in the business side of things, you think, we've got Chesterfield away today. They've probably got twice the wage bill we've got, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it just makes you think a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But that is the challenge, of course. That is the actual challenge for us all to rise above that.
Yeah, of course. And Mark, let's go back a little bit then. Let's chat about those days in the 90s. Obviously, Dad, I've already mentioned you were there, so you've got some questions loaded because I was born in 1992, so I didn't have the privilege of
You're
watching you,
making me
Mark.
feel old now.
That's why I had to negotiate with your mum, Liam. I had to negotiate leaving the baby and going to watch Mark. Yeah, Mark, just obviously it's not brilliant to dwell too far on our past. We do need to look forward, but we'll do that later on. Just as you think back to 92 and you walked into the club from Egham, I know, what were your impressions and what memories, where does your mind go to when you think of 92 and walking into Shots?
Well, it's an interesting story, which is, well, first of all, my association with the football club is I'm a Tongan boy. So it's a little bit Raw the Rovers. I'm a Tongan boy. I never got looked at by Aldershot. My footballing path took me in a different direction, which I ended up at Wycombe Wanderers, playing in this league that we're playing in now. And then Wycombe deemed me not good enough. And then I went back to Egham Town and I had a really successful season. And then timing is everything in life. And opportunities. And the incredibly sad thing was that Aldershot went pop. But it was the timing of that couldn't have been better in terms of my opportunity to come to the club. But just before that, I think one of the questions you've asked is, what do I think the DNA is in Aldershot? And my love affair, if you want, with this football club is probably associated around the late 70s when we seemed to finish 5th or 6th every year in Division 4. And we had the great cup run in, I think it was 78, 79. And you can almost, and I'm sure you'll be able to do the same, Howard, you can almost reel off that team, Johnson, Joplin, McGregor, Brodie, Dungworth, Needham, Crosby. And you can almost, I remember that team. And it was just a famous red and blue, and it was an established football club. I think one of the things that we struggle with in the modern game now is that players don't stay anymore. And we can't afford to give people 4-year contracts. So we only give them, 1 year with maybe some options if we get away with that, because we just simply can't take that risk. And after 1 year, if the player's done well, he may well have been tapped up or gets an opportunity to leave. And if the player hasn't done well, we may ask him to leave. So there's always a high turnover of players in the modern game. I think back, and I'm generalising, and maybe I shouldn't assume that, but back when we were watching the original Shots, the team was pretty much the same team week in, week out. Obviously, towards the end it wasn't. So that was the start. And then when 92 came, well, I was actually under a contract with Egham for the following season. So there were some contractual issues, and I had to go to a tribunal, believe it or not, at the old Lancaster Gate to get out of that contract to come here. I'd spoken to Steve Wignall. He was interested in having me. And that deal actually only went through right about 3 weeks before the season. I was training here, but if the tribunal had gone the other way, I would have had to have been forced to go back to Egham. So then that would have been a completely different thing. But we all knew it was special. We all knew 92 was special. We all knew that it was resurrecting the club. The football team had established players that maybe had just slightly finished, but they'd all played at the level we're currently playing. Keith Baker was a Rolls Royce. Danny Holmes, you had Dave Osgood, you had myself. And then you had a sprinkling of unbelievable talent which had come up from the lower levels. The 3 boys from Farnham were the perfect lads to join in the team. And it's funny, we didn't know it would gel. I didn't know Steve Stairs before playing for Aldershot. So who was to say how that partnership went? And it was just fantastic. I think we were competitive with each other as well. We both wanted to outscore one another without being selfish. I think we both laid on goals for each other. But that helped the competition. And it's arguably the best partnership as a forward that I've had, me and Stairsy.
Yes. Yeah, it was a great partnership, and certainly from the terraces, Mark, it felt like almost like the team had been together for forever. That there didn't seem to be many weaknesses, and although of course we dropped levels, there just seemed to be that you believed together. Is that fair? Is that right?
I think we were confident in that we could all play at this level and we would win if we played well. So there was an air of confidence. It wasn't arrogance. There was an air of confidence. Of course, later, like 2 years later, what that actually done, and this is turned out to be factual, but it made Newbury Town spend an absolute fortune, almost go full time with Don Howe, who had been an England and Arsenal coach, managing almost Reading reserves, and they were paying out considerable amount of money to compete with us. But then we didn't need as much money. I mean, I'll tell you a story. I joined Aldershot for less money than Egham paid me because I actually I wanted to be here. So at the time, it was about wanting to be here. Now we're at a level where there are competitions. Other football clubs are equally as, as big as us or as attractive as us. So now, it's a different thing. But then our team, I don't think was on okay money, and I was grateful for it. But Newbury were outpaying us, and so were Chertsey, of course, who then got Kenny Sansom and Ricky Hill, two people who'd played for England. They weren't the England players at the time, but they were still very, very good players.
Mm-hmm.
And us three tended to run away with the leagues for a couple of years because the rest of the team, of course, the rest of the league were, they were Diodora League standard.
Yes.
Good times.
Yeah, good times.
Very good
Over
times.
to you, Liam.
Yeah, very good times. I was just thinking now with what you're saying about the DNA mark. Are there any present players that you think, you're someone who epitomises what drove me, what makes this club so great? Do you still see that through to the current squad?
I think there could be. When I say that, not that they've got to change any of their performances. I don't know whether you'd agree with me. I was thinking about this question because you mentioned it and you briefed me, obviously. But when I think of Aldershot, so I like Joe Joplin. I like John Dungworth was my hero of the old football club. It made me want to score goals. And then I think of the new club, and a name that springs to mind immediately is Ray Warburton, who I think. So I think what it does, and then perhaps latterly Jake Gallagher was loved by the fans, and I think it comes slowly. So I think there are players in this team that could easily become part of the DNA, part of the fabric. I think they've got to make themselves, and of course to do that, they've got to be here a bit longer. They haven't got to change anything they're doing now. I mean, if Lauren Tolaj stayed here for 4 years, I think everyone would think Lauren Tolaj is absolutely amazing. I think he'd write himself, into the legendary status that perhaps he would deserve. But we don't know how long these people are staying. And by that, there's no rumours. I don't want that to start. I'm just saying, by definition, we don't know how long players stay at football clubs anymore.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, you're right.
So I think you earn it. To answer your question, I think you earn the DNA. But I do think there are some players here that could do that. I like the look of like Frosty, for example. He's a bit of a local lad. He's a grafter, and I think if he stayed 2 or 3 years, he could be someone who does it. Ryan Glover's, what's he in his sort of second, third season? Seems to have settled down in the strange position of left wing back. Seems to play there very well. And again, if he stayed a couple more years, I think you start. But I think you need that time at the club.
Yeah, naturally. Dan, I feel like if I put that question to you, you might have said Frost. Would you say anyone else?
I mean, reflecting on what Mark's saying, I think it's. My personal feeling is that part of the DNA of Aldershot Town, we're not a smart club, are we? We're not a smart town in many ways. I grew up in Farnborough, just next door, but went to school between Aldershot and Farnborough. So, we're not a flashy place. I think the DNA of Aldershot players that have been successful has been real triers. And, Jack Howarth, for example, wasn't the most skilled footballer in the world, not by a long chalk, on the floor. In the air, he was imperious, and shots played to that. So I think people who are grafters, and we can see their hearts really 100%. I really like Frosty. I think every time he goes on the pitch, I think he's giving everything. And I think Ollie Hartfield could be a legend.
I'd agree with that.
Again, he's so athletic and he's so quick in thinking. But of course, he's learning. And Tommy was saying the other day, if players don't do what I ask them to, then there's going to be problems. And Ollie is still learning that centre back role, really. That left centre back, left of the back three. But yeah, I think all of them are doing incredibly well this year. But there were one or two that could be legends, I think.
I'd concur with that. Actually, thinking about the work rate, because I mean, I was a grafter. I was a lot thinner, and I used to chase things down. I'd never stop running. Whereas someone like Solomon Aремio didn't really settle here. If you'd seen him in training, he was an unbelievable footballer. I don't think I was anywhere near as good as Solomon, and he always sticks out because I use him as an example. But for some reason, didn't quite work out for him here. But we have always liked someone who grafts. You've got to have some ability, but if you're grafting and put your effort in, you do get further down the line with our fans, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. Right. And you mentioned ability, Mark. Obviously, in the intro, I did say that, of course, you're still, to this day, the club's record goal scorer. When you look back now, how proud does that make you that that's still intact? You achieved that. And is there also a part of you that's just thinking, come on, guys, someone get on and break this record?
Well, I was reflecting on that question, and of course, I am very, very proud. There's a couple of things. I'm immensely proud of it, and it gets mentioned, and it's wonderful. So, and I think one day I'd like it to be challenged. Maybe they wheel me out or something in a wheelchair, so I shake hands with the guy that eventually sort of beats it. So I think that would be nice. I think there's been some great people that may well have gone on to beat it, but I think running the risk of repeating myself again, the modern game doesn't lend itself for players to stay at football clubs as long. Even if they want to, they may get moved on. So I'm not sure it's going to happen soon, but I wouldn't mind it happening one day. And to answer your question, I'm immensely proud. The other thing is, though, that whilst, and I don't want to dismiss that like it's a massive part of my life, I'm still driven to succeed in this part of my life now. So, I've got that there. It's fantastic. No one can take it away from me. Very, very proud. And now I want to be the best at what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's a really good attitude to have. And I was going to put that question to you, Dad, really, that as Mark's just said, you need actually to put the minutes on the pitch, stay at the shots for a few years to even get close to Mark's tally. And obviously we've talked about the fact the culture's changed, so we could be waiting a while. And maybe if Shots have success in the next couple of years, they can put players on multi-contracts, then it opens that door. But someone like Josh Stokes, you think, if he'd stuck around, then he would definitely be up there. But these players just go. So,
I'm joking.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I think what Mark said earlier, I think back, I started watching in 1968/69, and from one season to the next, there'd maybe be 3-4 changes in the squad. But you'd come back the next season and the core of the team would be the same unless someone had moved on. And you think back to those dates, 68/69, it was the same team every week. And I was reading something not long ago about the first substitute, because in the days of yore, before my time, Liam, just in case you say, there were no substitutes. So you had 11 guys on the pitch, and if someone broke down, you were down to 10. And I think Richard Walden was our first ever substitute. So in living memory, there was a time where you had 11 guys who played every week, unless there was an injury or a substitute, a need. So I think, if someone would stay 3, 4, 5 years here, they could possibly get close to Mark's record. But I think for now we'll volunteer to wheel him on when the time comes. Don't you think?
I'd agree with that, though. I think that would be the problem. There's some very, very good players, and that's another different question. And there's definitely some players that would have the capability of beating the record. And let's hope we do get to a situation where we can offer two ways that we can offer longer things, and we're in a division where people don't always. There's nothing wrong with what I'm about to say. Using us as a stepping stone to go higher. Maybe we get to that sort of League Two status where actually people might want to come to us and almost stay with us as well, if that makes sense. That would be the aim.
Yeah. Good.
Definitely. I was just thinking, actually, if I was you, Mark, what would I miss most, actually, about being a player? I'm sure there's lots of things, and the fact that you are still so close to the club, I think, you've got it good there, and that you can still feel involved. But is it the goal scoring? Is it being part of a team? Is it the cup runs? What is it that you most miss?
It's an easy question to answer. First of all, the dressing room, and you'll hear that from I would say 99% of ex-players, because the dressing room is a sanctuary, a sacred place where you and your team, you and your friends, you and your teammates are together, sharing moments that can sometimes be, arguments, can sometimes be just pure joy, laughter, despair, injuries. I think the dressing room is ultimately the thing that all the professionals miss, and you form a bond with your teams. Like, I've got a bond with the old Egham team, believe it or not, the 5 or 6 that are the nucleus. We're on a WhatsApp group there. I've got a bond with the 92 team, and then various people that joined afterwards. Jason Tuins, for example, still a good friend, and he's in New Zealand. So you get this bond with the various groups of your teams, and you can't really replace it. And whilst I am close, I don't get to go in the dressing room, and nor should I, by the way. But we have just done, I loved West Brom. I'm so proud of our football club and our town taking 5,000. I was in the stand. I could have maybe had hospitality, but I wanted to be in the stand. I thought it was just an amazing day for Aldershot Town, so that gave me a massive buzz. And then we do a thing called Shots for a Day, which is actually on Monday the 29th. I'm not quite sure when this will go out, but it's the 29th. And I'm in and around the dressing room there because it's a fun day for fans, where it's Terry versus Tommy. So I'm back in and around the dressing room there, which I'm looking forward to. But it's easily the dressing room.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And yeah, I think you've mentioned West Brom there, which kind of is a nice silo transition for us to get through to talking about the future. Dad, we've spoken, haven't we, about just trying to assess where the shots are. So obviously, great season. Mark's already said huge highs, a few lows. At the minute, we kind of a little bit like this. We don't know the next few fixtures how we're going to do. Mark, for you, would you say this is one of the best seasons you remember? You're very encouraged when you look forward to think what we could achieve this year?
I think there's a couple of things here, and I want to choose my words carefully. I was listening to your podcast the previous one, and I thought you spoke very well. So I don't want this to be negative. We've obviously had the 2 seasons with Gary Waddock where we were in and around the playoffs, or probably in the playoffs for the whole season. What I think has happened this year, though, is if it's a brand, it's the type of football. So the culmination of several years of just avoiding relegation, which has been difficult for you guys, which I totally respect, but it's been very difficult for the staff as well, because there's no one here that, wants to go down, and believe it or not, the chairman doesn't want to go down, the board don't want to go down. There's no one skimming off the top so that we sort of play regional football. We're all desperate to be as successful as we can. So I think the fact that we've had a few dark years after Gary's 2 playoffs, and then this season's been like a breath of fresh air. I mean, we haven't been winning at home, so suddenly our home form has got a lot better. So it's a fun place to come again. The brand of football, the Tuesday game at Bromley, for example, I thought was a great game of football. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a bit disappointed we didn't edge over the line, but it was a great game of football. We've had 5-3s. We've had 6-1 defeats. We've had massive wins, Swindon. So there is something happening here. There's no, you can't bottle it, because if we could bottle it, we'd do it every single year. But I think the circumstances around, even with the football club, we lost Gary. We had to tighten finances. We tried with a new modern type coach with Danny. It didn't quite work. I saw the reasoning behind it. We tried with the hero of the past, who've done all right, Mark Moseley, which went down well at the time when he was appointed. Unfortunately for Mark, didn't work out either. But I can see why we chose those routes. This is different. Tommy, I'd say old school. He says good school, which is a great term he uses. He reminds me of a manager of my era. He doesn't throw teacups around, but you'd all understand the terminology of teacups are getting fired around. There's a few things that are said in the dressing room at the time. And I love that manager. That's my thing. So we've gone back to that, and I think he manages this football club from the football side of it. I think he's in control of the football side of it. I think he knows what he wants. I think he trades off conceding goals with the style of football. He's not stupid. He knows we concede goals, but he also knows the style of football at times leaves him vulnerable. So I've had a chat with him about that. So I think all the circumstances, that bit of a bad time, being bottom of the league, never winning at home, to suddenly having a brand of football, a couple of heroes. Josh Stokes as a hero. We always need them. Lauren Tolaj, continental, long hair, hero. Shoots from wherever he shoots. He's exciting. When you get the ball, I bet you all think he's going to shoot here. He's going to shoot here. So we're already anticipating whether he does or not. And then a sprinkling of very other good players around. It's not just about those guys. But so I think that's what's captured the imagination. I hope it continues. We're in and around the playoffs. Tuesday's game gave me a lot more confidence that we can compete with them. So, like, if we did get Bromley in the playoffs, I think we'd give them a game. If it was a playoff semi-final or whatever, you wouldn't be scared of them. You'd respect them. You wouldn't be scared of them. And after the last few weeks, probably like all the fans, you have had some doubts. You've been going, well, are the boys, we got to try and get over the line. So, be interesting. I do want to temper it with the style of football. If we did finish 10th, it's still been a very unusual, exciting season. And I don't want to finish 10th, but I'm just saying it would. Yeah. I want to look after the manager as well. It wouldn't be anywhere near failure, certainly not.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Mark, so much. Liam and I spoke last week and said, exactly that. We were just talking about where we might finish. I think I said, I think we could end up 8th, which is just outside. But even then, and Liam asked me, is that success? And compared with the years before, that is success. And I think year one for Tommy, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he said somewhere near the playoffs, top 10. I mean, he's a winner, isn't he? He wants to win. But in his heart, I would reckon, from what I've heard from him, from his own lips, top 10 is a big step forward from 21st when he came. And next year, depends who he keeps, really. But yeah,
I'd agree with that. And I think us guys, and I know you'll be part of the group that would do this anyway. But if there is anyone listening, I think next year could be harder. Like we won't have Josh, and he's been a fantastic player for us. Teams will know about us. We've probably caught a few teams by surprise this year. I think we were favourites to be relegated by some bookies or something along those lines. So no one was probably expecting too much. So you could get a little bit of second year syndrome where we got to look after him. And let's be honest, it's very difficult to keep pulling Josh Stokeses out of a hat. Whoever he recruits next year, it's unlikely, and I really hope I'm wrong. It's unlikely that they're going to have the same impact as Josh Stokes every game, every one we sign. So I think he's been a breath of fresh air, and I just I want to look out for him next year, because I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying the things that you've obviously said. Depends who we keep, depends who goes, how do we re-recruit, what do we invest, what do we pay back to our debtors? We carry some debt. I'm sure you will know that. I'd like to see the club debt free. So as much as I want to give Tommy as much money as possible, I want to clear any debt so this football club doesn't have a repeat of 1992 or even the worrying time around 2013. So lots of options, but he's brought a breath of fresh air. And if you speak to him, he's a very confident man, Tommy.